the mortars started coming down and hit the ammo dump. And all the 105 howitzers, the shells, the 75, the 30 calibers, they exploded. And they come up on top, clean above us, upon the beach, and bursted. And all the sand came down on me. And my buddy was there. He had a shovel. He started shoveling me out. I was born and raised in a little town called Gallitzin. It's about 8 miles from Altoona. We had a family of 13. I remember we were playing at a playground, and these folks come out and they called us in the house and say, "Hey," and it says, "We just been bombed by Japanese." And I said, "Wow." Of course, I was only very young at that time, 1941, 16 years old, I think it was. And so that was it. I signed up in June of 1943, and then we went into August, went to Paris Allen for basic training. I had buddies that already had joined, so I went along with them. So I left school early to join the Marine Corps. I was 17. We went to training to Paris Allen, South Carolina. Well, I was pretty active in civilian life. I was pretty well athletic, and when I got into basic training, I was pretty well and conditioned. We were assigned to Quantico, and that was a school of sound ranging. Well, sound ranging, the whole purpose was to locate hidden enemy artillery pieces. We would lay wire about 80 yards, and we had microphones. They were about 18 inches long. They had a positive sign, positive post, a minus post, and we would connect them together, and that came from our command post. So we had connected those into our instruments. But prior to that, though, we had to check out the microphone, so we had to put a canvas cover around the microphone, covered with dirt, and then we clapped our hands. And of course, the needles at our base would move because we're picking up sound. So every time the enemy would fire, microphones would pick the sound up. It would come down through the wires into our meter. It would register. And how we determined where that position was, prior to that, we had a map of Iwo Jima, and we had coordinates on each end of the island. So when we had set the artillery pieces, we make sure that they were in a grid, knowing what the coordinates were, and we knew where the coordinates were at the other end of the island. That's the only way we could tell how far they were by the coordinates. So anyway, when they fired, the sound comes into the microphone, comes into our command post. We get a series of plus readings and a series of minus readings. So the more plus readings we got, the more accuracy we was getting to the position. So after we get all that data, of course, we had a logbook. We had to calculate the elevation, the range, and the distance for the artillery. And that's what we did over there in Iwo Jima. It was back in 1945. We first went to Hawaii, and then we went up to Hilo. That's a little island. This is where we trained. This is where the Camp Toraro was for the Marine base. And the 5th Marine Division had organized there. We trained there. We knew we were going to go to combat sometime, so we actually we trained there all the time. I was really homesick at first, After, of course, you have a lot of buddies with you. They keep you going a lot, So we were anxious to get there also. And I think it was my 11th wait that whenever we landed on Iwo, and before we got off the board ship, we had to go down the side on the ropes into what they call a duck. It was a motorized vehicle, which runs in the water and then gets up on the beach. But we had a hard time getting on the beach because the sand was so thick and black, and We couldn't get any traction, so they had to put some wire mesh down to get the vehicle out on the beach. So finally, we got part way up as we got out, and we got in the water about 18 inches, so we finally got on dry land. And so we kept on going, and we had to stay at the beach. So how we had to stay there, the patrol come up and said, you're going to have to stay overnight because you can't leave. And so we did. We had to dig in at the edge of the beach. So we dug in. And of course, before we went along, we had to carry our equipment, which was sound raising equipment. All the other apparatus with it. Mount Suribachi wasn't too far from us. And they were firing mortars down on the beach. And I didn't actually realize that we were so close to an ammo dump at that time. And finally, the mortars started coming down and hit the ammo dump. And all the 105 howitzers, the shells, the 75s, the 30-30 calibers, they exploded. And they come up on top, clean above us, upon the beach, and bursted. And all the sand came down on me, and my buddy was there. Of course, we were in the forecastle that time, and all the sand came down on me, and he had a shovel. He started shoveling me out. We were very, very fortunate that we got out of there alive. And then the next day, the patrol come up, and they said that some of the shells went down as far as 50 to 80 yards along the beach. It really injured a lot of Marines and killed a lot of Marines from that particular incident. And while that ammo was going on, we had two Marines actually crawling up with a fire extinguisher trying to put the fire out. So one of them didn't make it. And of course, the other one, he finally got it put out. So the next day, we had to leave, and so we had to carry all our equipment back up there. We had to follow that tank to get to our position. And here when we got there, a lieutenant had us missing in action because we didn't show up that day. So they're very, very pleased to see you, happy to see us. So from there on, of course, then, we had to move forward. At the end of the campaign, which is about 30-some days, they knocked out 50 Japanese artilleries, and we got a Presidential Citation on that. I can remember when they laid out an area for the graveyard. Most of my units were around there watching, placing the bodies at the graveyard. That was one thing very, very, very sad. When I was on the beach, there was this Marine had a tripod with a telescope. He hollered at me, "Hey, Marine, come on down." He says, "You want to see history made?" I said, "Yeah." So I went down. He says, "Come on, look through that telescope." I looked up there. By golly, there he was. The first time I saw the flag being raised. And then, of course, they raised it the second time. They went down to the ship and got a much larger flag to be brought up to be placed up there.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, terrific. The very last day, my birthday was on the 27th of March, I think. We left maybe a couple of days after that. That was my time that I could remember, that leaving after my birthday, the 19th birthday. We went back to Pearl Harbor. That was back up in Hilo to recuperate. Of course, we were there until the time we were to leave to go to occupation in Sasebo in Japan. If we had to evade Japan, we'd evaded Sasebo. Anyway, they told us that we had to go through this canal to get into Sasebo. And if we had to invade that, they had artillery on each side of the channel. We would have never made it through that channel. I think our whole division would have been wiped out, really, if we had to go there. So we were really fortunate that the war was over. Well, when we got there, they were very friendly, and we couldn't drink their water or food because we had to carry purification tablets for our water, just in case, we had to have water. we had to go to an area where we had to disarm some Japanese troops, all their weapons, rifles and all that stuff like that. And then, of course, they had points. They get discharged on points. You had to have 40 points to discharge, and I had that many. We packed up, and we boarded the boat. We went to back to Camp Pendleton, and then from there we took a train all the way into Great Lakes, Michigan. That's where we were discharged. I remember it was on April the 6th. In 1946, we were discharged.
If you're enjoying this video, you should join our exclusive Patreon community to receive early access to videos each week, the chance to send questions to our heroes, and much more. We scour the country to identify, film, share, and preserve these first-hand battlefield accounts, and time is of the essence. To join our mission, visit patreon.com/American Veterans Center or click the link in our description. It's up to each of us to guard their legacy and honor their sacrifice. Thanks, and now back to the interview.
My dad and brother came to the railroad station and picked me up. After the war, we signed up on that 50-20 club. You got $20 a week until you got a job. So I got hired for the city of Altoona. And, of course, with this training I had at Quantico, it was surveying. And I had experience on surveying. So there was an opening for the city engineering department. So that's how I got in, with experience. And I became a surveyor and an engineer. I spent 45 years with the city. I've been retired since '91. We go down, come off the LST, and I had to carry some equipment with me. You could see that. We were working over towards the area where we were going to dig in, and then we placed all the equipment. Of course, we had to dig a foxhole first, and we had to place all our equipment in it to protect it in case it would get damaged. And I could recall that. This is one of my buddies that pulled me out of the foxhole that sand come out on me.
Where's you?
Right here. I was 18 years old on that photo. I tremendously feel highly about it, really. I could do it again if I had to, really.